The moment that changed everything. The classroom fell silent as 12-year-old Amara stood at the front, her hands trembling but her voice steady. "I want to be a scientist and cure diseases," she declared, her dark eyes shining with dreams bigger than the small, dusty town of Willow Creek. The other kids stared, some in awe, others skeptical, but it was Mr. Dawson's laugh that cut through the air like a blade. "A scientist? You, Amara?" "Stick to something realistic," he scoffed, his voice dripping with condescension as the class erupted in giggles. Amara's cheeks burned, her heart sinking, but something inside her sparked, a fire that refused to die. "Hey, hit that like button if you've ever had a dream someone doubted, and comment below, what's your city? Let's see where you're watching from." Years later, that same Mr. Dawson sat alone in his living room, the TV glowing with the Nobel Prize ceremony. There was Amara, now Dr. Amara Patel, accepting the award for her groundbreaking cure for a rare disease. His jaw dropped, regret flooding his chest as he realized the girl he mocked had changed the world. How did she get there? Let's go back to that pivotal moment, the one that turned pain into purpose. Amara wasn't born into privilege. Her family lived in a cramped apartment, her mother a seamstress, her father a factory worker. Money was tight, and dreams seemed like luxuries they couldn't afford. But Amara devoured library books on biology, sketching DNA models in her tattered notebook. That day in class, Mr. Dawson's laughter wasn't just a moment, it was a wound. She went home, tears staining her pillow, but her mother's words echoed, "They laugh because they don't see what you see. Prove them wrong." Amara did just that. She studied late into the night, her desk a patchwork of secondhand textbooks. In high school, a kind librarian, Mrs. Carter, noticed her passion and slipped her science journals, whispering, "You're going to do something big." Those words became her lifeline. By college, Amara earned scholarships, working part-time to support her family. She faced rejection, professors who doubted her, peers who whispered she didn't belong, but she pressed on, driven by the memory of that classroom humiliation. Her research on genetic diseases began to turn heads, and soon, the world would know her name. On Nobel night, as Amara stood on that global stage, she didn't just win an award, she won justice, proving that dreams, no matter how mocked, could reshape the future. But what did Mr. Dawson feel, watching the girl he dismissed shine so brightly? And how did Amara's journey change more than just her own life? Let's dive into her story, from a small classroom to a world-changing legacy, the crushed dream. Amara Patel stood nervously at the front of her 7th grade classroom in Willow Creek, a rural town where dreams often stayed small. The assignment was simple: share your biggest dream. Her classmates had spoken of becoming teachers, mechanics, or farmers, safe, familiar paths. But Amara, with her worn sneakers and hand-me-down sweater, dared to dream bigger. "I want to be a scientist and find a cure for diseases, like the one my cousin has," she said, her voice quivering but clear. The room went quiet, the weight of her ambition hanging in the air. Then Mr. Dawson, a stern man with wire-rimmed glasses and 20 years of teaching behind him, let out a sharp laugh. "A scientist? Amara, people like you don't become scientists. Stick to something practical, like nursing." The class snickered, some out of nervousness, others joining the mockery. Amara's face flushed, her hands clutching her notebook where she'd drawn diagrams of cells. She wanted to disappear, to shrink into the cracked linoleum floor. But as she walked back to her seat, head down, a spark of defiance flickered. She wouldn't let his words define her. At home that evening, her mother, Lila, noticed her silence. Sitting at their small kitchen table, surrounded by the hum of a sewing machine, Lila gently asked, "What happened, Beta?" Amara's eyes welled up as she recounted the humiliation. Lila, her hands calloused from years of stitching, cupped Amara's face. "They laugh because they're scared of what you can become. You keep dreaming, and you show them." Those words planted a seed, one that would grow through years of struggle. Amara lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, replaying Mr. Dawson's laugh, but also her mother's faith. She pulled her notebook close, sketching a new diagram, promising herself that one day she'd make the world listen. Amara woke the next morning with a quiet resolve. Mr. Dawson's laughter echoed, but her mother's words rang louder. She walked to the Willow Creek Library, a small brick building with creaky floors and outdated books. There, Mrs. Carter, the librarian with kind eyes and a knack for spotting potential, noticed Amara poring over a dog-eared biology textbook. "You like science, don't you?" Mrs. Carter asked, sliding a stack of science journals across the counter. Amara's eyes widened. These were real studies, filled with words she barely understood but desperately wanted to. "Keep them," Mrs. Carter whispered. "You're going to do something big." That small act of belief became Amara's anchor. She spent hours in the library, decoding complex terms, her notebook filling with questions and ideas. At school, Mr. Dawson continued to dismiss her, giving her lower grades on science projects, saying her ideas were too ambitious. But Amara didn't argue. She worked harder. She joined the science club, where a shy chemistry teacher, Ms. Rivera, encouraged her to enter a regional science fair. Amara's project on plant-based remedies for inflammation won first place, earning her a small scholarship. The victory was sweet, but the memory of Mr. Dawson's doubt fueled her. At home, money was tighter than ever. Her father's factory hours were cut, and her mother's health was fragile. Yet Amara took on odd jobs, tutoring younger kids to buy a second-hand microscope. Late at night, under a flickering desk lamp, she studied, driven by a vision of a lab coat and a cure. Mrs. Carter's journals became her escape, each article a step closer to her dream. She didn't know it yet, but that science fair win was the first ripple in a wave that would one day reach the world. High school brought new challenges. Willow Creek High was underfunded, with outdated labs and overworked teachers. Amara's peers mocked her ambition, calling her the dreamer behind her back. But she kept her head down, earning straight A's while working part-time at a local diner. Her family's struggles weighed heavily. Her cousin's rare genetic disease worsened, and medical bills piled up. Amara's dream of curing diseases felt more urgent. She applied for scholarships, spending nights crafting essays about her goal to revolutionize medicine. Rejections came, some citing her unrealistic aspirations, echoing Mr. Dawson's words. But a small state university offered her a full ride, impressed by her science fair record and a recommendation from Ms. Rivera. At college, Amara faced a new world. Her classmates came from wealthier backgrounds, with access to resources she'd never had. Professors sometimes overlooked her, assuming she couldn't keep up. But Amara thrived, staying up late in the library, teaching herself advanced genetics. She took a job as a lab assistant, cleaning beakers but listening intently to researchers' discussions. One professor, Dr. Ellis, noticed her curiosity and invited her to join his team studying rare diseases. Amara's research on gene mutations began to show promise, earning her a grant to continue her work. Each step forward was a quiet defiance of the laughter that had once crushed her. Back in Willow Creek, her mother's health stabilized, but the family still struggled. Amara sent money home, sacrificing her own comforts. The memory of Mr. Dawson's scorn lingered, but so did Mrs. Carter's belief and her mother's encouragement. Amara was building a path, not just for herself, but for her cousin and countless others. Years passed, and Amara, now Dr. Patel, stood at the forefront of genetic research. At 32, she led a team at a prestigious institute, developing a treatment for the same rare disease that afflicted her cousin. Her innovative approach, using targeted gene therapy, earned her international recognition. When the Nobel Committee announced her as a finalist, the news spread like wildfire. In Willow Creek, Mr. Dawson, now retired and living a quiet life, saw Amara's face on a news segment. His heart sank as he remembered that classroom moment, his laughter, and her determined eyes. He dismissed her as a dreamer, but here she was, on the cusp of history. Amara, unaware of his thoughts, was preparing for the Nobel ceremony, reflecting on her journey. She thought of her mother's sacrifices, Mrs. Carter Nueva Linea, journals, and Ms. Rivera's encouragement. The pain of Mr. Dawson's mockery had faded, replaced by pride in her work. Her treatment had already saved lives, including her cousins, and was being adopted globally. Back in Willow Creek, the town buzzed with pride, though some, like Mr. Dawson, carried quiet guilt. He sat in his modest home, flipping through old yearbooks, pausing at Amara's photo. He'd been wrong, terribly wrong. As the Nobel announcement approached, He wondered if he'd ever get the chance to make amends, or if Amara even remembered him. For Amara, the past was a distant motivator, but the future was her focus, changing lives, one cure at a time. The Stockholm concert hall glowed under golden lights as Amara stepped onto the stage, her navy gown shimmering. The Nobel Prize in Medicine was hers, awarded for her groundbreaking gene therapy that saved thousands. Her speech was simple but powerful. This is for every child told their dreams were too big, for every person who believed in me when others didn't. The audience rose in a standing ovation, tears in many eyes. In Willow Creek, Mr. Dawson sat glued to his TV, his hands shaking. Amara's face filled the screen, radiant and confident, a far cry from the shy girl he'd mocked. Regret washed over him. He'd been part of her pain, not her triumph. He remembered her notebook, her earnest voice, and how he'd dismissed her potential. Now the world celebrated her, and he felt small, unworthy of the pride Willow Creek claimed. Amara, on stage, spoke of her mother, Mrs. Carter, and Ms. Rivera, but never mentioned Mr. Dawson. To her, he was a fleeting shadow, a moment she'd overcome. The broadcast cut to her team, her cousin in the audience, now healthy, and global headlines praising her work. Mr. Dawson turned off the TV, the silence heavy. He wanted to reach out, to apologize, but could he? Amara's victory wasn't just hers, it was a lesson for everyone who doubted her. Weeks after the Nobel win, Mr. Dawson sat in his living room, a letter half-written on his desk. He'd tracked down Amara's institute and wanted to apologize, to tell her he was proud. But the words felt inadequate. He'd spent years teaching, but that moment with Amara haunted him. How many other dreams had he dimmed? He drove to Willow Creek High, where a banner celebrated Amara's achievement. In the library, he found Mrs. Carter, now retired but volunteering. "I laughed at her," he confessed, his voice breaking. Mrs. Carter, gentle but firm, said, "You can't undo the past, but you can change the future." Inspired, Mr. Dawson began speaking at local schools, sharing Amara's story and urging teachers to nurture dreams, not crush them. Meanwhile, Amara received his letter but chose not to respond. Her focus was forward. Her Nobel win inspired Willow Creek to fund a science program for low-income students, and Amara's institute launched outreach for young girls in STEM. Mr. Dawson attended one of their events, watching young dreamers present projects, his heart swelling. He didn't need Amara's forgiveness, her success was enough. He vowed to be better, to ensure no child felt the sting of his doubt again. A legacy of hope. Amara's Nobel win was just the beginning. She founded the Patel Foundation, a nonprofit mentoring young scientists from underserved communities. Schools across the country adopted her story into curricula, teaching kids to dream big and persevere. In Willow Creek, the science program she inspired flourished, with students winning national competitions. Amara visited her hometown, speaking at the high school where her journey began. She stood in the same classroom, now renovated, and shared her story, not mentioning Mr. Dawson, but emphasizing resilience and kindness. "Believe in someone's dream," she told the students. "It might change the world." Mr. Dawson and the audience felt a mix of pride and humility. He'd become a volunteer mentor, guiding kids with the encouragement he'd once withheld. Amara's foundation partnered with corporations, creating scholarships and labs for rural schools. Her cure continued to save lives, and her name became synonymous with hope. As she walked through Willow Creek, her mother by her side, Amara felt peace. The laughter that once hurt her had fueled her purpose. The town that doubted her now celebrated her, and Mr. Dawson's redemption inspired others to uplift, not undermine. Amara's legacy wasn't just a Nobel Prize, it was a world where dreams were nurtured and justice found.